Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Alias Guy. Well, had to take the day off yesterday. It's going to take a lot more than one day of sweating to remove the filth and, well, absolute evil that I witnessed come out of Winnipeg. We're going to dabble into that a little bit later into the show. I'll be burning sage 24 hours a day for quite some time. We're going to touch on a few things here, kind of get caught up on what happened yesterday, and then kind of just roll through into where we are right now. And as normal, I'm going to do the weave and sew and kind of put all of this together. We're going to start off with this Enbridge CEO and how he's just pretty much proven what everybody who pays attention and lives in reality knows. There are proponents. There are multi-billion-dollar corporations that would love to be here. They would love to have the ability to make money, open offices, be part of Canada, help with our systems, freely pay taxes so they can make some profit. But more than anything, to replace the dirty oil and the war, as we out west call it, blood oil, that because of the Trudeau Liberal Carney government of the last 10 years has funded, and we've seen the carnage Carney of what happens when the world absolutely needs energy, where they will go to get it, and what happens to those countries when they profit from it, and the war and death that follows. Now, this is something that, of course, for generations where I am, through my family and everybody else I know, even people who have just been here for the last 10, 15 years, understands. Why would you buy oil from any other nation but Canada, especially those that go completely against the fundamental principles of what it is to be Canadian? And number two, why would you not try to get our oil to other countries who share almost identical values so they can get off of blood oil? And number three, for all of those greenies, cut the GHGs and save the planet. This is the fantasy that Canada's thrown into. And I'm sure glad that the CEO came out. Let's get started. And like I said, we're gonna do the whole bob weave and just kind of stitch everything here together, and where we go, nobody knows. It's just another episode in the day of the life of a Canadian.
In the oil and gas industry in calling for an end to the West Coast tanker ban, your company also joined others in the oil and gas industry in calling for an end to the West Coast tanker ban and an end to the federal emissions cap. Those are things that you've outlined and been very clear about in the past, also today at the Empire Club. If those two issues and the others that you've raised and the others in the industry have raised are addressed, what guarantee does the federal government have that your company would invest money to build a pipeline in Canada?
Well, I think the first thing they can point to is we've already proposed this and tried to build a nation building pipeline in the past, right? We had a project that was to the West Coast that had the support of many Indigenous nations, had the approval of the Canadian Energy Regulator, and the support of our customers. So now you have pointed out a big if. So if the tanker ban is removed, if we get to the right spot on carbon levies and emission taxes, and our customers therefore have the ability to produce a product that is produced amazingly relative to other parts of the world, then I think that opportunity is there. But again, one only has to look to the past of this industry and Enbridge and others that have proposed such pipelines in the past. I'd also point out that we are spending some $30x billion across North America, 5 or 6 of that in British Columbia on pipelines today. So, you know, we are a company that invests and grows with our customers, and we operate in jurisdictions that welcome us. And those pipelines in British Columbia today are bringing natural gas to the Lower Mainland and to LNG facilities, which, as you know, governments have been very supportive at this point in time. It took us a long time to get there, and which are absolutely critical to moving the country forward.
I guess I'm just trying to sort of get it more.
All right, so as always, I post everything in the description below. And I'm once again going to repost the actual letter so that everybody has a chance to read it. It's important to understand the seriousness of how Canada is constantly trying to cut its own legs off. All for the global elites and this fake climate scare that they're using in order to take power. Moving on.
Sort of simply, if they go ahead and answer all of the, I don't want to call them demands, but sort of respond to your requests that you've put out so succinctly in those 2 separate letters, does that mean that Enbridge will be the proponent of a pipeline to the West Coast?
Well, I don't think you can be that definitive. There are several other players involved here, but what it does mean is that Enbridge would entertain the possibility of a proponent. Today, I can't even do that because obviously you're not going to build a pipeline to nowhere. So if the tanker ban's there, why would you build a pipeline to the West Coast? So I think it gives us the opportunity to be a proponent, which is why today all we are is an advisor. The proponent is the government of Alberta.
Yeah, and I guess I'm asking because you're saying an opportunity to be proponent, but you know the federal government is likely looking at this and saying, okay, well, what guarantees do we have on our side that if we make our move, that Enbridge will make their move?
Well, again, I think if you look at the past, if you use the word Enbridge, you're talking about someone that has already proposed this in the past. If you talk about TMX being involved, as we know, as painful as it was, that was built, and there are others that have built in that regard, and all of these customers have, with the right circumstances, supported pipelines. So I don't think you have to look too far to see concrete, real examples of Enbridge and other pipelines being willing to be the proponent of a pipeline if the conditions are set. Capital will go to where the conditions are set. And today the conditions are not set for that pipeline to exist in Canada. It's existing in other parts of the world, and seems to me, and I think most Canadians, if you look at opinion polling, I think we're talking about 88% of people recognize and believe that the oil and gas industry is critical to Canada, and about 75% are supportive of building oil pipelines, and think we can do that at the same time as finding ways to do it less intensively from a carbon perspective. So not only are there possibilities to be proponents out there, importantly, Canadians are looking for the leadership to actually carry that out.
Some of the things that you're...
Now, the CEOs of a lot of these other companies, the ones who have already pretty much closed in laying off people, have all joined the United States. They've gone down there, they have been doing media blitzes, bragging about Trump's policies, the benefits to America, and the benefits to the world by, well, stopping the purchase of blood oil and gas, energy as a whole. Other CEOs, now you got to remember, there are companies that are involved in Trump's organization. These are the companies that, well, Carney has some investments in through Brookfield and other ties. These are the companies that spent billions of dollars trying to shut us in. So there's a war going on right now. There are companies within Canada that, well, they're left out. They've been shuttered because the way that socialism, and this is where I use the terminology fascism, this is what they do. They pick and choose the companies they want that will profit them, follow the ideology of that regime, and in our case, this is where I was saying they've ripped away the fabric of what fascism was and used it in order to create this completely chaotic world we're in now. They created a false narrative. This whole green push, this carbon footprint push. I'm an environmentalist. Our family was using material for wrapping gifts decades ago. Like when I was a teenager, we started doing this. So we weren't using paper. And then after a while, we realized, well, there's also newspapers. So we started using newspapers. They don't make the prettiest gifts, but guess what? It all gets recycled. You get to use it as many times as possible. We use everything we can, stays within our farm. Our actual footprint from where I am is so minuscule. It's so minuscule because of the practices in which we do. That is environmentalism. And it goes all the way to the point that when I'm traveling from Saskatchewan all the way out to my land in Northern Ontario, I have to make sure I bring enough fuels so that I don't have to buy blood oil once I cross the border and get deeper into Ontario. And that includes American oil, as far as I'm concerned. Because why would I want to support Americans who are making all of this money and profiting from the demise of the price depreciation that Alberta and Saskatchewan gets on their oil and gas? It's like, really? You're shooting yourself in the foot. So this ideology that they built, they have now kind of, because it's been brainwashed, man, there's so many people, especially the younger generation, just brainwashed by this, that now they have the ideology set. So instead of them coming in with a nationalistic idea and then trying to gain power, picking away at certain people and not getting power, they've already ascertained it. Because they've had a long enough time of them infiltrating the schools, infiltrating politics, paying politicians through support, through donations, commercials, using their propaganda to push this fake narrative. So they've created an actual national interest that gave them power. You see where this goes? If you look up fascism, I'm telling you, I studied propaganda, I studied history. I seen this coming for a long time. This is the reality of where we're at.
You're talking about and what you need removed. From your perspective, does it matter if it's a blanket removal of all of these regulations, i.e. the tanker ban, the emissions cap, and industrial carbon levy, versus a case-by-case exemption that are issued by the Major Projects Office? Do you have a preference one over the other, I guess is my question.
That is socialism. And now, because of the way the government and all of these elite globalists, these very wealthy corporations, have created this fake narrative, they've stepped it up into fascism because they have the propaganda and they have the teachers in school. They have all of these NGOs who have been pushing this fake and it's fake. This whole carbon footprint crap, it's all fake in order to take power. This is the stepping stones. This is where, when he came in, his dad was socialist, and the little turd came in, helped, and strings pulled by Mark Carney, which we're going to expose a little bit later, in order to keep pushing the complete takeover of a nation. I love the answer. And you got to remember, he is trying, Greg Abel is trying so hard to be apolitical, but he does a very good job.
Well, here's what I would say to that, Mike. Look, I think that having bespoke regulation is not a great way to formulate capital and bring it together. So, look, that may work on occasion, and there may be a particular project one wants to pursue and the government may want to pursue. That's up to them. But I think what you would be better off doing is creating the conditions across the entire country that will allow capital to come and these projects to be pursued. The Public Policy Forum put out a report recently where there are some $600 billion of projects that are looking for an opportunity to be built, and that if those are built, they could add $1.1 trillion to Canada's GDP by 2035. So I don't think you just want to pick and choose. I think you want to put in place the conditions for private capital to form, for companies like Enbridge and others and producers to actually produce, and the rest will look after itself, quite frankly. And I think you see that in a lot of other places. Remember, 10 years ago, there were no LNG projects on the West Coast, on the Gulf Coast of the United States. And in fact,
Zero. Zilch. Nada. 10 years ago. Listen carefully.
Couldn't even export from the United States. Today, they have already built 10. There's another 8 being built and another 10 yet that have been approved. Meanwhile, we're just getting there now. So that was all about policy by successive governments, not picking individual projects, but actually creating the conditions for the capital to be formed, for the customers to support them, and companies like ourselves to be able to build those projects. There are plenty of examples of this working, and Canada is amongst the best to make it work.
Now, is it a coinky-dink? Is it a coincidence that right after Trudeau got elected, 10 facilities got built on the East Coast, profiting all of those oil companies and their investors, all of the elite, all of the sponsors of American politicians, all of the same people and corporations that were involved in shutting Canada down? Now, I hope you, if you're new, tune into previous episodes and then check out my new channel, Reality Revealed, and you can actually see the documentary where this is all exposed, called Over a Barrel. This was planned. Now, is the turd that dumb? Now, we know he has an IQ of around 86, but he's also part of the WEF, and everybody already knows more than half of his cabinet was infiltrated. That's the words right from Mr. Klaus Schwab himself. They were infiltrated in the Liberal Party. This is why the Liberal Party, all the real liberals, the smart liberals, the liberals who knew what was going on, fled from the party. This is why they're trying to speak up now, but because of propaganda, they have no voice. So you have them starting their own podcasts and videocasts in order to try to get the liberals who still have no idea what's going on because all they watch is propaganda to realize this is not the Liberal Party. Every one of them will tell you it is a socialist party, further left than even the NDP. And a few are even starting to throw the word fascist because they're now seeing the full outcome of what has been planned and pushed and implemented on Canada. It's no coincidence that the day Trudeau got in, the state started building gas plants, more oil refineries, up their production. It's not a coincidence, people. If Canada really wants to be a superpower, we have to start thinking of ourselves. I want my neighbor to have the brand new truck. I want them to have all of the nicest things there are. I want them to have a good healthcare system. I want them to not have to pay taxes. I would love to see all of Canada have this type of just amazing, rich life. But it'll never happen if we keep repeating the past. And again, we're going to break this down a little bit later.
But even if the industry does get what it wants here from the federal government on the regulatory and legislative front, there remains opposition amongst Indigenous communities. Now, the Coastal First Nations, for example, states it explicitly. They do not support a pipeline and oil tanker project in their coastal waters. So how does industry address that opposition?
Look, I think one has to consult up front, and I think the Premier, I mean, you saw her conference yesterday, is trying to do that. Obviously, we're at the very early stages. I think we have to recognize as Canadians, not everybody is going to be 100% on side with all these projects, regardless of what project is. That's just not the way of any modern society. I mean, some people will like them, some people won't. And we see this with Indigenous participation, First Nations participation in our other projects. Sometimes we get nations that want to participate, sometimes we don't. Therein lies the essence of self-determination, I think. So, look, there's a long ways to go. We're probably getting ahead of ourselves until the condition precedents are put in place, the 5 that I mentioned today at the Empire Club, and that over 100 CEOs across the energy spectrum have put in a letter very clearly, as you point out, to the Prime Minister. So once those are met, and part of that is Indigenous equity participation and participation in those projects, then you've created the conditions for things to proceed. We're not there yet, let's be honest.
No, I take your point on that, but we are at this point today because the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has promised to turn Canada into an energy superpower.
Yeah,
From
right.
your vantage point,
Right.
is that feasible? Can Canada truly be an energy superpower?
Absolutely. I mean, we have supplies of, you pick it from uranium to natural gas to oil to gold. I mean, we have everything set up. The only thing that's stopping us is ourselves. I mean, we have the need. There are 7 billion people on the planet that don't have the same access to energy that we do in North America. We have an obligation, a moral obligation, I think, to help them move to use the products that we have in this country. And let's not forget, we produce oil and gas, amongst other things, amongst the cleanest of any nations. So if we don't do it, the only people that are going to be able to do it will be the Russians and the Iranians and others that, frankly, I'm not sure Canadians would like to see those 7 billion people served by those players as opposed to ourselves. And even the United States as well, right? This is a competitive world. We have the products. We know the demand is there. We should take advantage of that and serve Canadians while also serving other parts of the world.
So do you think that Canada and the federal government's regulations that are in place are standing in the way of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, one only has to, whether it's Europe, you see permitting reforms that are going on there. I think the Prime Minister recognizes that.
This is where he's got to do his little bit of butt kissing.
You know, on election night, I believe he said, "Build, baby, build." I think those words matter. I love that enthusiasm from him. I think he recognizes we have been uncompetitive for the last 10 years, and he knows that changes have to be made. He wouldn't have created a major projects office if he thought things were going swimmingly in terms of building infrastructure.
All right. So, anyways, he ends up kissing butt for the last few minutes there. Whatever. The fact of the matter is there's not just one, not just two. There's just shy of 100 CEOs who are ready to build. And it's not just oil and gas. They want to build, but they can't. And in the meantime, they're watching the transnational companies, the intercontinental companies, the global elite who have shut us down through the Liberal Party, now moving everything across to the States because they have the ability to, and they're friends with the parties that are in power, and they're going to be make money hand over foot. Their economy, well, it's already up. I think it's, last I looked, 3.8, and this morning when I was checking the clicker, it was like 4.2%. In the meantime, Canada's down 1.9%, further than where we were before. Their economy's going to boom south. They're going to get rich. We're going to keep falling into the dystopia that the Liberal Party, led by Mark Carney for the last 10 years, wants. And now you got to pay attention, because the CEOs, he finally got a chance to get on one of the propaganda outlets. They are, this was a quick click. They're going to have a couple little power play and here and there. They'll talk little snippets. They're going to bring in so-called conservatives, so-called, not real. To be honest, I do not think 10% of the people who are so-called conservatives that actually go on all of these propaganda outlets, global CTV, CBC, especially CBC, CTV, are real. They're not. They're not. They're going to spin this. They're going to start saying stuff like, well, right after this came out, all of a sudden, Carney now has a meeting with Trump. Dun, dun, dun. They're going to call in supposed conservatives. I don't need to say his name, but let's just say he's the guy that actually has an albatross around his neck. And they're going to go out there and they're going to try and get your focus off of this and get it back onto Carney and the evil Trump. And how the Liberals are doing such a good job. And they'll do the whole, oh, well, you know, Carney should do this, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the Conservatives should do this, blah, blah. Oh, but it's a good thing. Aha. Propaganda. All propaganda. Propaganda is the most powerful tool in any socialist, dictatorship, fascist, or communist regime.
CTV and CBC lied about the Montreal police response to the Leaders Debate chaos. And thanks to your help at rebelinvestigates.com, we have the Freedom of Information records to prove it. The federal leaders' debates back in April of 2025 were supposed to showcase Canadian democracy. Instead, these debates exposed collusion between Canada's state broadcaster and the taxpayer-funded Debates Commission meant to referee them. Rebel News had twice beaten the Leaders Debates Commission in federal court after being unlawfully barred from covering the debates. By 2025, facing the prospect of an embarrassing third-time loss, the commission capitulated and accredited Rebel News, including myself. That legal victory, of course, enraged the legacy media, particularly the CBC. Rebel News reporters were heckled in the press line, disparaged with lies on national television, and ultimately shut out of the post-debate scrum on the second night when the commission canceled the scrum entirely rather than allow questions from independent media. I know how it went down. I was in the room the whole time, subject to vile workplace harassment for 2 days straight. I guess we were too good at our jobs on the first night after upstaging the entitled bullies in the mainstream media.
You caused an incident that caused the security concern that got this Q&A shut down. So Ezra Levant, I blame you 100% for the Q&A being canceled.
There's not 13 rebels here. Canvexty doesn't work for us. You're angry because you didn't
it's
like
a Potemkin village, right? You have as many outlets as you can start up websites, right?
I don't even know what Ricochet is. I assume you take government subsidies. I assume, is that correct?
Yep.
I mean,
Indian Indian territory for your policies, but here in Canada, you support censorship and words that you think are unacceptable, especially through censorship online, and you actually refuse to answer questions from journalists with whom you do not agree, as you have just done. So you should be punished in one way or another, is the impression that leaves. So how are you different than people who would put you in prison? Answer. That is another example of why I do not answer questions from Rebel News, because you are spreading disinformation, and your question is an example of this.
You didn't hear me. Over 200 Christian places of worship have been attacked in Canada since 2021. Many served First Nations communities, many were historic, and they diverted police and resources and put others at risk. What do you say to Canadians who see your refusal to answer, especially from one of the few media outlets here that are not funded by the state, as proof that a vote for you is a vote for a dangerous radical party that gaslights the public into thinking it stands against hate, when its silence is instead emboldening Christophobia?
Your question is another example of why I don't respond to agencies like Rebel News that promote misinformation and disinformation.
If real media would have actually done their job, we wouldn't be seeing this.
I went to a meeting and I had to pass by Young and Bloor, and of course they're there protesting. It hurts so much after what happened today in Manchester. It hurts not feeling safe in this city anymore. And I cannot escape it. Like, even on the bathroom wall here, because I'm now in a bathroom crying my eyes out because I was crying away from them on the street, and this lady started filming me and laughing at me. So I took myself into a bathroom and restaurant so I could pull myself together. And even in here, I cannot escape this. I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of this.
Now, this is for a Toronto woman. She shuttered herself in a washroom to escape the mob that was hounding her. The pro-Hamas, supposed Palestine mob. Even in the washroom, she ran into swastikas and anti-Jew rhetoric and hate, anti-Semitism. The mob was actually at the Israeli consulate. I'm not going to play what they were saying. Use your imagination. If media did their job and wasn't the propaganda arm of the leftist loonies, that question would have been answered. It's not just Christian churches. This is where Rebel. Well, let's move on.
The most violent anti-Semitic crime wave in history.
Yes.
There have been shootings, fire bombings, even a riot right here in Montreal. But not all of this anti-Semitic hatred and incitement rises to the high level of a criminal code offense. Do you believe that foreign nationals, that is, people who are not Canadian citizens, should be deported for participating in these hate marches or other pro-Hamas activities that don't rise to the level of a crime?
Well, what I have said is when there is a crime involved, including crimes of vandalism, that visitors to Canada should be deported. You simply can't come here and firebomb a Jewish bakery or someone's home or smash windows out of a political riot and expect to stay in this country if you are on a visitor visa. We will be bringing in tougher laws to penalize those who are permanent residents and citizens who break laws and harm our communities.
Why have you never, not even once, opposed OPEC conflict oil being imported through an aging pipeline? Why do you prefer OPEC conflict oil over Alberta ethical oil?
I seem to believe that you already have the answer you want to write, so your question seems to contain the answer. I believe I am the one who authorized the change of direction in Enbridge Line B in 2013, which seems to prove that I'm not a fanatic against oil. But I believe that we've got to reduce our consumption of oil progressively, including from Alberta, because we are clearly being very expensive for every family in Quebec and Canada.
Is that so, Yves? Is that so?
The government seems poised today to announce a deal with Enbridge and some other major companies to put forward a pipeline proposal, an oil pipeline. Fortunately for you, I think it's not going to go to Quebec, it's going to go to BC. You've been critical of the Alberta government before. What do you make of them going forward with this?
Let's imagine that Quebec is an independent and free country. We will go on the world stages to say that Alberta is destroying the environment of the whole planet. So I will say the same thing. Either it goes through Quebec or not. The idea of augmenting the volume of oil and gas which is extracted and then burned and consumed is irresponsible. I would agree with real measures to help Western Canada to transform in time, progressively, its economy in order to get all of us out of this economy which is destroying the planet slowly, but more and more clearly than ever.
Right. Moving on.
After the post-debate scrum was cancelled on the second night of the debates, CTV senior political correspondent Mike Lecouture reported, and I quote, "There were Montreal police on scene and other increased security measures in place." Then, CBC's histrionic crybaby, David Cochrane.
Bob, I'm going to come to you on this. Here's what's going on here. To my left, there's the room there where the media is gathered. It's where they can watch the debates. This is where the scrums are happening with the leaders. There was some sort of an altercation inside there in the last little while involving Ezra Levant, who is the head of Rebel News, and other journalists. Michel Cormier has escorted Ezra Levant out. His credentials, we believe, has been revoked. Earlier in this program,
which was all lies. I've already proven that on previous episodes.
You might have seen sort of some glitchy video playing because we had to go to tape because Mr. Levant and his people came over with cameras rolling and tried to interrupt this broadcast. You know,
again, proven to be a lie as exposed on previous episodes.
Which is something journalists do to other journalists, I guess.
Falsely suggesting that Rebel News accreditation had been revoked. And he went on to state that Montreal police were on scene to protect him. From what exactly? Me? Drea? Alexa?
Police are here putting up caution tape, escorting people out. And the leaders of Canada's four parties who were able to participate in this debate, because they, what was the phrase? Didn't feel they could provide or guarantee a proper environment. They're not going to take questions from journalists. And look, I know not everybody thinks it's all about us, but it is an important part of the ritual of elections and democracies and accountability. And it is part of the stress test that these leaders go through as they seek to lead this country, you know, and spend your tax revenue and make laws, and some serious things being discussed there tonight about criminal justice and using the notwithstanding clause. These are all things that require a serious and mature debate, not financially motivated stunts. And this is where we've ended up in this election. With everything going on with Donald Trump and everything going on in this economy and everything going on in the world, this is where the national Canadian election debate has ended up. And it's just exhausting. And it
is exhausting because everything you said is irrelevant compared to all of the questions that should have been asked. And if they were answered, we would be in a completely different position right now.
It is the end product of multiple years of rage farming for narrow political gain and financial benefit for a very small group of people who blew this up today.
All in all, the message was clear. Independent journalists were such a disruption, such a threat to the safety of the mainstream media, that the Montreal police had to be called in. Again, look at this footage from inside the media room. Who exactly are the aggressors here? Now, a Rebel News Freedom of Information request to the Montreal Police Service, the SPVM, exposed the lie. Officials confirmed they have no records of any involvement whatsoever. No calls, no messages, no officers. Security inside the debate venue was handled by the RCMP, not SPVM, and certainly not because of Rebel News. But this is all part of a pattern of dishonesty from these people. This isn't a one-off mistake. CBC's own ombudsman admitted in April that the 2025 election set a record for complaints, more than the previous 3 months combined, with the leaders' debates at the center of viewer outrage. Why? Because...
And let's not forget about this question, which would have solved, well, the disgust and the heebie-jeebies I'm gonna have to keep going and trying to sweat off me. And I got sage burning everywhere, people, because this was ignored.
They claimed accreditation was revoked. It wasn't. And Rosemary Barton falsely told Canadians that remains of Indigenous children had been found.
These claims have been disproven by bands that excavated and remain unproven by those that have not. Will you condemn the rise in acts of hate against Christians today and explain what your party will do moving forward to keep Christians safe from hate in Canada?
Again, thank you, but I'm not going to respond to an organization that promotes misinformation and disinformation like Rebel News, so no, I'm not going to respond to your question.
And that's where we lead up to for our next small segment. And I'm going to try, after having to watch this again, well, to not vomit and to try to remain somewhat calm. So hopefully I don't start screaming into the microphone for the rest of this. But this is what happens when you have propaganda and a party in power using them to create chaos. This is absolutely disgusting.
We don't want you on the grounds here. You're not welcome spewing your hate. Who are you? You don't even know who I am. Who are you? You don't need to know who I am. No, you don't have any authority. I'm asking you to leave. No, I'm not leaving. You're not welcome. I'm not leaving. Spewing your hate. You're garbage. Residential school. Susan residential school. So when my father, you should be asking to have every time you talk. Your fucking hate. Everywhere you go, we will be here reminding you of what our ancestors went through. Every time. Every time. I'm a professor. Please let me document. Why are you anti-Tesla? You're not filming our elders today, brother. You're not filming our elders today. It's not happening. Is your job worth it? Is your job worth it? Is your job worth this shit? Because I'm telling you right now, you're not filming our elders like you did yesterday. It's not happening. It's not happening. Can I please ask you to take your hands off my property, please? I'm a professor here to document an event. It's fine. It's fine. You can say all the bullshit you want. You're not filming our elders today. You're not filming our elders. You're not filming the stories. You're not filming the pain. You're not documenting what this bullshit does to our families. You're not documenting it today, boy. You're not. You're not. It's not happening. It's not happening. You gotta remember, you're on Treaty 1 territory. This is Anishinaabe land, and our sacred laws trump anything that you're gonna spew. You are not filming our elders or our women or our children or their horrific stories today. For your grift and for her propaganda, it's not happening.
So the camera's been covered this whole time by one of the extreme ladies. She broke the gimbal already. And yeah, Dr. Page is trying very calmly to de-escalate the matter.
You know, I'm a daughter of a residential school survivor. So to hear those words spoken yesterday, like everything is a hoax, I had to sit down, being the oldest of 5 kids, and hear my dad's story, you know, of the things that happened to him. So to come here and try to film and state that, you know, pretty much all First Nations people across Turtle Island are telling lies. That's exactly what she's stating, though, and you're filming it. So you're saying it's okay. That's exactly it.
Hey,
so that's why
these
we're
are all the
here.
institutions I've worked for. I'm a professor here. So if you're blocking a professor, it'll make it, because I want people to see what she's actually saying, you know? So that we can all understand what actually is happening.
We're not trying to do educational. It's hurtful. It's hurtful what she's saying.
We don't do educational.
You know, she disrespected our elders yesterday, and as a community, you can see we're not going to tolerate that. It's not allowed. Yeah.
Human rights, civil rights, or charter rights. So, you know, we have to
I don't know. You're on our land. You are on Treaty 1 land, so we as First Nations people are the first peoples of this land, right? So, and that's all we're simply stating. You know, and we can't allow that garbage to continue being spewed. I'm sorry, but my dad was hurt. My dad was really hurt last night.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, you know, we're talking millions of kids that were raped, murdered, you know, by people that of a higher authority, right? That were supposed to intend good things for us. It never happens.
Yes. No, well, you gotta understand this is a different intellectual exercise. We're at a university.
Yeah.
Where we have freedom of expression and academic freedom. And it's very important we respect these things.
She's stating, though. Sorry.
She finally got her hand off the camera. You're going to get attacked. I'm just warning you. You're filming them. They'll come at you. Now, this is mob mentality. This is inexcusable. This goes against every single thing I have been taught, I have studied, and I have learned about my heritage. These people, well, there's beliefs, and they're very common amongst the Indigenous. And the first one is you don't own the land. Knock it off. The idea, the belief behind the Creator is that they have loaned us this land, and it is our responsibility to leave it better than we find it, to share the bounty that the Creator has given us, to pay respect and homage to any life that we take in order for us to sustain our life, and to share that bounty with those who don't have the ability to do it themselves, like our elders and our children, and those within the group who have been injured or suffer from problems. This is the main staple of what it is in almost every single indigenous tribe there is in North America. What we are seeing here are bad spirits who come in and they possess, they push, they whispers in the ears of those who are weak, of those who don't see the reality of what the Creator has given them and their actual purpose. They have lost their way. Now, you can call it Wendigo, there's many different names, but that's what happens, and that's, ooh, you feel it creeping on my skin. There are no mass graves. Period. 0 bodies. There are unmarked graves of those who have died in residential schools. There were wrongs done by bad individuals in those schools to those children. There's no denying that. To blame an entire society for the few is completely wrong. Completely wrong. Now, Nanabojo, another kind of a good deity, spirit, is present, is there, and is fighting to try to guide all of this evil out and teach these people from this experience to get closer and get back to the Creator. But because of propaganda, allowing, and this is the other side of the Nanabush. This is the other side of Nanabojo. The two fights, and it's up to the elders, and I'm not talking just indigenous. I'm talking about people like this professor to go out to put themselves in harm's way in order to get the truth out, for them to shed the bad spirits, the Wendigos, to enlighten the people. We are all on this continent together. We are all in this country together. I am so sick of hearing, "You're on my land." Knock it off. You don't own land. And if you know anything about your culture, you will be the first one to actually sit back and go, that is correct. You are an equal partner, just as those who have 0 indigenous, or those like myself and others who have 1% to 80% indigenous in them. We are equals, and we have to treat each other that way, and we have to have a dialogue, and we have to be able to sit around with the pipe and debate and discuss in order to increase our knowledge and the capacity within the group to understand that there should be no fear, hate, and division. There should be no violence if we plan to live on this land, on Turtle Island, on the Creator's gift. Oh, this is scary. This needs to be fixed. And then you have people like this waste of skin, who again, Wendigo.
We're going to gather here this afternoon that you should not be protesting a Minister of the Crown's right to serve the people of Manitoba. And I would say to the goofballs out front, if you have an issue, you have an issue with me. I am the one who decided to keep this minister at the cabinet table.
Now, this loser promotes this gang who is passing, they're spreading Wendigo, they're spreading evil and hate and mistruths. And he's used them in order to gain power. He's given his soul for power. This is the wrong person to represent the Creator, to represent a province, a community, or even a country. That little debacle had to do with one of his ministers who got up and mocked Charlie Kirk's murder. She should have been fired. Previous episodes. She needs to be removed. And the whole time he's up there calling everybody else who just wants him to realize the wrong and the hate and the rhetoric and the lies and the violence that people like this minister push should not have their position. They should be removed, is alongside standing with the girl who was covering the camera and being violent to the professor who's trying to help get the truth out. She's not saying that there were that nothing bad happened in the schools. Everybody knows that there were. It wasn't the entire Catholic Church. It was a few. In fact, there were a few indigenous nuns that were involved in these atrocities. We need to open up the truth and have the ability to sit down and discuss this like adults. It's being ripped from us. Why? Propaganda. See, I'm getting worked up. I'm raising my voice. I apologize. Literally, my skin is crawling right now. I had to watch this all over again. I barely slept a wink last night. This is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to every single nation. There's zero media coverage of how many chiefs are ripping off their nations. I see this stuff daily. I'm part of a lot of the indigenous communities on a lot of different social media. Harper tried to clean this up. The media attacked him, and they used the same chiefs that have been ripping off their people and allowing them to live in the poverty that they are today. We can fix this. We can actually have reconciliation, but not with lies, divisiveness, hate, fear, division, and chaos. The corruption and the greed has no bounds. Evil begets evil. And if we don't allow ourselves to expose it calmly and debate it, show the evidence, bring it forward to the public's attention, embarrassing or not, without sunlight, the darkness grows. And then you have this in my province. By the way, there's a lot of dirty chiefs in my province too. It's not just this. But this is just a great example of what's going on.
Jacqueline Ottman became president of First Nations University back in late 2021. It did not take long for concerns to emerge. In 2023, the board launched an investigation of dozens of allegations. The scathing report that emerged found Ottman was involved in 9 cases of nepotism, hiring friends and family into her circle of favor. And it found she violated many university financial and governance policies. The report concluded she was empire building. After the investigation was launched, Ottman fired the key whistleblower, Jason Wong, who was the university's VP of Finance and Administration. Investigators found that firing was at least in part retaliatory. Alan Adam was vice chair of the university's board that commissioned the investigation. He concluded Ottman should be fired.
We need a good person in there that is going to be there for the best interests of us, the people, and not just their own interests.
He says the board chair at the time agreed she should be fired, but a group of new board members, mostly First Nations chiefs, had a different view.
They said we're behind our president 100%. Right away, that was their position. We're behind her. Whatever investigations happen, let them happen.
Adam says he and the board chair were pushed out. He worries that history is repeating itself. 15 years ago, this university was in turmoil while being led by a board made up of mostly First Nations chiefs. Ottawa and the provincial government cut the university's funding.
I guess really what we're talking about is the loss of confidence by this government in this institution. So what we've done is said we won't be renewing funding.
Funding was restored after new rules were established, banning politicians from the board. But recently, the chief-led organization that runs the university decided to once again give chiefs the majority.
You've got them meddling again and potentially protecting the president, appointing people who will support the president.
Ottman has not replied to CBC's request for an interview. In an email, the board chair says the organization has done a comprehensive review of the reports and it has complete confidence in the president. Jeff Leo.
Unbelievable. And this is what's going on right now with this whole bullshit Truth and Reconciliation. The turd started this. That should tell you everything. When that piece of crap, anything he's involved in, is corrupt, is dirty. He don't care about you. He's using the Indigenous against anybody else who's not part of. He's using fear, hate, and division, thrown in with chaos and taxpayer money, with the help of propaganda to push these lies. Now, I've got all the documents. And guess what? Now you do too. They'll be attached below, as always, because, well, that's why I started the channel. To stop propaganda. To give people the truth. So sorry. The truth. Just the facts. If we can't sit and debate, if we don't have the ability for free speech and the freedom to share information, what good really are we? Are we slaves to the system, to our government? Are we going to allow ourselves to keep repeating the past over and over, taking turns on different people, different cultures? Are we going to actually fall every time we take 2 steps forward be pushed back and not fight? Are we going to accept all of this? It never ends. It never ends here in Canada. Propaganda. It's propaganda. And it doesn't help when every single aspect of the government in the last 10 years has been corrupted. Every last thing. You think you can trust the government? Do you think you live in a democracy?
The panel that administers the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol was first established in 2019.
Who was in power in 2019? Who changed it? Who applied this? Who got caught cheating? Who got caught with Chinese interference and other countries interfering and sponsoring them? As well as nobody looking into the WEF. Nobody looking into the global cabal. Nobody trying to fix and correct and hold people accountable for all of the breaches of ethics that were going on, the corruption and the scandals. Who was in power? Who did this?
The panel is composed of 5 senior public servants: the clerk of the Privy Council,
Liberal,
the National Security and Intelligence
Liberal,
Advisor to the Prime Minister, and the Deputy Ministers of Foreign Affairs,
Liberal,
Public Safety,
Liberal,
and Justice.
Liberal.
Independent reviews of the 43rd and 44th general elections called...
Independent? This is your Canada, people. This is what propaganda convinced millions of Canadians to vote for again. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And see, I'm all worked up. I started off calm. Man, I had a good sweat. Sage, oh man, I was great at the beginning of this. And now I'm just, my skin's crawling and I'm frustrated and I'm mad and I'm confused. I'm heartbroken. And I'm yelling at the microphone again. I apologize. I am gonna try and do a part 2 tonight. Like I said, I gotta go sweat. I gotta get cleaned up again because I had to watch that video with you and I had to discuss all of this with you. It's just disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. There's no reason for it. Come on, Canada, we're better than this. Especially you Indigenous, you're better than this. Unbelievable. Getting emotional. It's pissing me right off. We're broken. We can fix this. We can come together. We really can. We can make a difference. We can become a superpower. We can pass goodness all over the world. We have the ability to not just stop wars, but to actually force countries, force them through the use of our goodness, our hard work, and our resources gifted to us, to actually have those changes so that we can have the LGBTQ rights, women's rights, children's rights. We're the most powerful nation on earth, and we've never given ourselves the ability to actually do anything because of all of this chaos. Pisses me off. I'm sorry I'm yelling at the microphone again. I'm mad, frustrated, embarrassed, disgusted, all of these things. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to try and get a part 2 done. There's another great interview that went on that really pertains to a lot that's going on here today. And please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out there. I post everything in the description. We need to break propaganda. This is how we do it. Truth. Just the truth. So sorry, just the facts. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Alias Tagay. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.